Absolutely love her content, love her stuff. She always is on her A game when it comes to the best bets that you could choose from every single week of the weekend. Joe Madden joining us here on the program. I'm like thinking about this, Joe. Like last night just kind of proved a testament. Buffalo's putting all of their chips in, and they are playing with everything right now. They're fighting for everything to get themselves into potentially a Super Bowl. Josh Allen looks good. I love the fact that they've been utilizing a lot of their tight ends. They got 3 of them, utilize them on every side. And we know James Cook, new contract, he's playing for something. So what I took away from the game, Joe, and correct me on it if you will, but I think Buffalo is just that kind of physical team that can play in the trenches. And unfortunately for Miami, they look like a mess. They don't look that intimidating. And I just think they've been built more for speed than they have of just being tough and physical and winning those trench games that Buffalo, I would even say, teams like the Chargers or a couple of other teams in the AFC that they are capable of doing. What did you take away from that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely on the money there. You don't think of Miami as a team that can win in the trenches, right? They have to be able to get that ball into his hands for Tua to throw it down the field to Tyreek Hill, connect with Waddle, Tyreek Hill, his big connections out there. Otherwise, they're just not getting things done, and his offensive line isn't giving him the time. I struggle with Mike McDaniels being their head coach. I did think he was going to be fired after the loss versus the Patriots, and I understand why they didn't do that on a short week. And I do think he proved enough last night, keeping that game within that 10-point margin to hold his job for another week. But I just think the time has come. It's Mike McDaniels or it's Tua. And you look at Tua and you look at his struggles versus the Buffalo Bills. We all expected it, right? It's not like the Miami Dolphins roll into Buffalo and get those wins, but normally the weather is a huge factor for the Miami Dolphins. The weather wasn't a factor last night, and they still weren't able to get the win there. And we didn't expect it. The books didn't expect it. But you look at the Buffalo Bills, you look at Joey Bosa joining this team and how much deeper the trenches are now, too. With him there, he looks like he's turned back time. He's playing so much stronger. He's coming with full force, so he needs to stay healthy for them because we know Joey Bosa has had those injury concerns over his career. But this team is ready. They want to take the Super Bowl. We know Josh Allen got married this summer, so he's ready for this to be his year.
Yeah, he's looking to double down on the rings. He's already got one ring on his finger. Now he's hoping to at least get the next one if given the chance. It's funny. Before I get to Mike McDaniel, when I look at Sean McDermott, and I've heard people tell me he's like the modern day Marty Schottenheimer in a way. He can really shape up an organization. Since he started there, the Bills have now gone into a track record where they've made the playoffs. They've had a winning record. And I would say, I think everybody kind of knows it with the NFC, is when Brady's dominance after 20 years, the Patriots then start to fall off. And then there's a new regime that comes in, i.e. Buffalo, that now it's harder to really trump over them in the division. But everybody's holding their breath because McDermott, and I've said this about defensive coaches, and I watch this with Atlanta, they tend to get defensive. They pull the reins. They have to play a little bit shorter. They play a little bit conservative. So at this point, I know Sean McDermott's a very good guy. He's got a great character. But for Buffalo, this has to be the year where they really have to put everything together, be a little bit loose, be more consistent and such, have a structure. That's important. But if nothing goes well and they can't get up and into a Super Bowl, Joe, I feel like this is going to be a tough topic to talk about by the end of the year if they can't get there, right?
Well, it's going to come down to, can he get past? Can Josh Allen and this team get past Patrick Mahomes? Because it's what it always comes down to. It's Allen versus Mahomes, and they have to find a way to get it done. And I do think this is such a more complete team this year. We saw injuries on the offensive line last night, and it didn't even look like they had those struggles with the guys stepping up in the trenches, being able to get things done. And you look at Josh Allen, as long as he is on the field, he is playing like Superman. And you look at James Cook and all of their weapons, all of their tight ends out there. We saw Kincaid getting into the game last night as well. I do think this team has every ability. They're strong on both sides of the ball. And we look at Kansas City to start the season, and you never want to write them off to start because we know they've had some slower starts, they've had fast starts, and when push comes to shove at the end of the day, Kansas City always finds a way to get there. But we're looking at Patrick Mahomes not having those weapons. We're looking at Travis Kelce just not looking like the Travis Kelce we knew, and we know he can step up in the playoffs, but this isn't baseball. So we're not looking for a player that just, he shows up in the playoffs like we do see with some baseball players. But I do think Kansas City's in trouble this season. They're just not looking like themselves. 0-2. They got a big game on Sunday night versus the Giants. We'll see what they're able to do against the Giants and Russell Wilson. But this is just not a season for KC. I think this season is all about Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, it's kind of hard for KC fans to really grasp it because I watch their offense, the red zone offense, I'm not pleased with because they're not utilizing a lot of like Isaiah Pacheco like I'm used to seeing. And then some of it, it's like they come up with clever plays. So I don't know. There's a change in identity. It's hard to figure out, but we'll see what happens against the Giants on Sunday night. That should be an interesting game, though, coming in. Mike McDaniel, though, like we talked about, I think you nailed it on the head when it came to this team's they're just playing for jobs because right now I don't see a team that's focused. I don't really see a team that is intimidating, which is kind of hard because teams that usually play for jobs, they're more insular and they're not really thinking about the bigger picture. Like, hey, we need to get together and we need to play physical. We need to be able to outmatch them on every snap, every down, and every possession. And so with Miami, my big thought is this. This is going to be an attractive job if it opens up because warm bikini season weather every single day. The other thing is we got to add some pop. We got to fix that offensive line. We got to at least get some fierce attackers on the front and really kind of fix up that secondary because the minute Javon Holland and Xavier Howard, these guys were gone. That secondary I don't even trust a whole lot. Sure, they got Micah Fitzpatrick, but I felt like for years Chris Greer, like some of their drafting's been not even like up to par. And so I feel like Miami would be an attractive job, but people give me pushback on this. I feel like this could be a job that someone like a Mike McCarthy would be okay coaching this because say what you will, even with Green Bay and even with Dallas ended up going 12-5. They found their consistency and structure. This is just what the Miami Dolphins need. Is that kind of safe to say about this organization, or should they honestly look a different direction if, in fact, the kettle is thrown and these two are out the job?
Well, hopefully they don't bring in someone like Brendan Staley because we know the mess that he did with the Chargers, right? But it feels like the Miami Dolphins just might pull something like that out there, not look to pay someone. There is major adjustments that need to be made, like you said, with the trenches of this team. And you've got to wonder who's willing to take on this job because yes, I give Mike McDaniels a lot of strife out there, but is he as bad as we've seen him as a coach here? I don't think he really is. I think there's something going on. The chemistry isn't there with the team. We know that offensive line, how many years have they allowed Tua to just get pummeled behind it? There's so many changes that need to come for this Miami team to give him the support as well. And I feel for Tua because I think he is a competent quarterback out there. We look at Daniel Jones moving to the Indianapolis Colts, and he's looked like Superman the last couple of weeks, right? So you get a quarterback behind the right offensive line with the right OC, and magical things can happen. So there needs to be changes. Even look what Sam Darnold was able to do with the Minnesota Vikings, which I've always been a believer in Sam Darnold, but it has to do with that coaching staff. The coaching staff has to be on the money, and the right coaching staff will be able to get the Miami Dolphins to where they need to be, but they're going to have to improve those trenches. And that's really where it comes down to. I think you were straight on the right point for this team right off the bat of the show.
I agree. Yeah. Cause it's just like, I've been to Miami before, and like, to me, there's only so much of humidity I can take between them and Jacksonville, but still beautiful weather. Like it's so enjoyable. It uplifts people. I can understand it's the retirement capital of the world. Everybody loves the place. They love to be by the beach, warm season, their skin's glistening. I totally get all of that. So I don't see why that couldn't be a job that you would take restructure and get it consistent, and then they'll finally get them, because you want them to compete. I mean, I'm watching New England. They changed up their regime. I'm watching the Jets. I mean, the Jets, they got something there, but they're going to need a few more pieces. So I want to be able to compete within my division if I'm the coach. So love how you segue when it came to Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold, because on the show, I do it every year. Now it's changed because I usually do NFL Prime predictions, but now we changed it to Jake's Inferno 5, my 5 hottest bets. So first game that I picked up from here, I like the Vikings -2.5 because I feel like you've got a grown-up in there with Carson Wentz, who has got his belt in the NFL. Yeah. Kevin O'Connell, you could see the frustration on his face when it came to J.J. McCarthy. However, Christian Darrisaw looks like he may be looking to play this weekend. Looked pretty good. I like the Vikings' chances to rebound. What are your thoughts on that? Because I can kind of see Carson Wentz. If this worked with Sam Darnold, I don't see why it couldn't work with Carson Wentz too, with Kevin O'Connell. Getting Justin Jefferson involved, all the weapons. I really am liking Minnesota's chances to rebound.
Well, I want to be Carson Wentz's realtor because he's the first player in NFL history to play on 6 different teams for 6 different seasons. You imagine the commission if you're buying a house in each different location that realtor has made. But all jokes aside, I think Carson Wentz is the better quarterback here. We've got Carson Wentz versus Browning. I don't trust in Browning, and I do think Joe Burrow out of the lineup for Cincinnati. This is an undervalued line here for the Minnesota Vikings. I can't believe we're only laying 3.5 on some books. Now, you still got Justin Jefferson out there, and I think Carson Wentz is going to connect with Justin Jefferson. And I know we got Jamar Chase on the other side. He's going to get open for Browning, and I do think he should be able to come out nice and strong. But you look at the end of the day, I've got the more physical, better team here at home, and I'm only laying 3 points. It's the Minnesota Vikings all day long with the better quarterback.
I just feel like, too, keep an eye out for it on Cincinnati because Noah Fant, Mike Gesicki, I could see Jake Browning utilizing that dual tight end set several times in the game and maybe not even check downfield for Jamar Chase or even T. Higgins at that point. Second game, okay, this team always finds a way to stress my wallet out every single time I bet them, and that's the Atlanta Falcons. But I like their chances at -5.5 this week because last week I didn't really like so much of the offensive play calling, and I don't know if you've seen that too. Because to me, I was even talking with John Abraham, the former defensive end, and what he noticed is there were times where Michael Penix would be slinging the ball, looking comfortable, but then Zach Robinson or Raheem Morris is pulling the reins back. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this offense is so capable of putting up 25 plus points a game. Yeah. Why are we going conservative to out routes? But I feel like this is an opportunity to really find the median behind it. And I think the Falcons offense might actually look good because I loved what their defense played like last week. So I like this bet line.
Yeah, but I also look at what their defense did last week. It was versus J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings offense. It just wasn't clicking with J.J. out there. So that gives me a little bit of concerns, especially in a divisional matchup here between these two teams. And I agree. Michael Penix Jr., he gets that ball out so fast. He is just slinging it down there. I like what the offense is able to do. And Bryce Young, we know he struggles to see over his offensive line. I have a hard time backing a smaller quarterback. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've never loved Russell Wilson. You know, that smaller statue behind the big offensive line. I just don't even understand how they see nice and deep downfield for those players. And we know they find a way. But Bryce Young, he's actually been able to score a touchdown in each of the Panthers' last 3 home games with his legs. And I do think we could look at Bryce Young to get in the end zone. For me, I'm not going to bet this one. It would be the divisional home dog plus every single point I can get, or a complete pass, but I can't talk you off the Falcons. They are looking like they've got the better team. They've got the better quarterback, but I just don't know how much I believe in that defense versus the quarterback they faced last week in J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah, I agree. I think, too, they even mentioned it on the program where it came to Jeff Ulbrich. Like, he's still kind of looking for that 15, 16 sacks a year guy, but hopefully with the guys they've drafted, that can help to build pressures, get sacks, and at least get possession on the offensive side. But, yeah, I'm hoping that they clean things up and get structurized. I like this one, too, that I think is also pretty underrated. Rams plus 3.5. I couldn't even believe, I watched the Rams the last 2 weeks. Now, Houston, I knew Matt Stafford was kind of coming back from injury. It was going to be a little bit shaky, but the ground game, though, Joe, I think has been really looking pretty good. I think they, with adding in Blake Corum into the middle of the mix, Kyron Williams, I think this Rams team, like the defense too, getting coached up, they've looked pretty good. I don't think it's superb to where they're lessening them to like 17 points a game, but the Rams, they compete, and I think Sean McVay always seems to find a way to offensively get points on the board. So I like the Rams' chances this week. What says you?
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one, right? Matt Stafford versus Jalen Hurts. We know how strong the Philadelphia Eagles have been. As soon as we think about them, we think about that run game, solid run game here with Saquon Barkley. And then we also think about their ability to get that tush push in. So for me, this is more of a prop bet market that I'm going to be looking at Jalen Hurts to be able to get that touchdown on the board because of the tush push. You got to wonder if we're going to get those penalties on that tush push this time, because there's been so much controversy around how they're able to just get things done. But a really interesting stat on Jalen Hurts. He's 17-0 straight up as a home favorite versus a team over 500. Now we have seen lines move to 3 on some books, a solid number of 3 and not the 3.5. I do think the Eagles have every ability to win, but I'm with you. This could be a game where the Rams do get the cover. The plus 3.5, the optical number that you want for the Rams if you're going to be backing them. They did look great last week. I love Matt Stafford's ability to be able to move that ball, and we did see them win 5 games straight up as a dog last season. So they do have every ability to roll in here, especially when you look at the Eagles. You look at their win over the Chiefs, and you've got to think they would have got up for that game. That was the Super Bowl rematch. This could be a bad scheduling spot for the Eagles where no one expects the Rams to come in. It feels like week 3 is going to be all about those dirty dogs. And I tell you, Jake, I went with the dirty dogs last week, and that absolutely killed me. In week 1, we saw those favorites coming out, the majority of them covering. And then in week 2, those favorites really heavily covered, except like the Giants, right?
Yeah.
Were able to push the Cowboys. But this week, it really does feel like those dogs are barking.
I'm so happy I'm not the only person that thought that, like up in week 1, because I was just like, look, I got my whole herd of Rottweilers barking because I just feel like I don't know. Look, I'm from Vegas, and sometimes I looked at those lines and I'm like, is somebody out there drunk? Like, why are these lines looking like this? Like, this is insane. But yeah, I do think this could be a game. And by the way, this is a team too that almost beat them up and in the playoffs. They made it very competitive. So I can kind of see where Sean McVay would like to get a little get back on that. A team that's been on fire, which most other teams in the AFC didn't quite expect this start. But if you didn't expect it, you don't quite know Jim Harbaugh. But I think the Chargers, because they're up and at home, they were in that little pocket. They go in from Sao Paulo, go up to Vegas, and now they're at home in their first official home game in LA, but they are playing the Denver Broncos. The last of the back-to-back-to-back division matchups they got to play. I love the Denver Broncos defense. I really do. But Bo Nix, to a degree, concerns me. He's already got 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. And I'm kind of like, what version of Bo Nix am I going to get? The one that's not going to turn the ball over, or the one that is going to throw maybe 1 or 2 in the middle of the game, and that becomes crucial for their offense to stay up onto the field. I like the Chargers' opportunity. They did get 2 edge rushers to replace up for Khalil Mack, who's on the IR. But I do think with Jim Harbaugh and the way this offense has looked up, they're going to find ways to really attack more of the underneath throws, just like we saw up in week 1 against the Chiefs. What do you think?
So this is a hard one for me. I am a LA Chargers fan, and my heart wants to believe the LA Chargers can win 3 divisional matchups in a row, taking down the Kansas City Chiefs, then the Las Vegas Raiders, and now being able to be at home where they should have home crowd advantage, but we know they really don't. Taking on the Denver Broncos. I look at Bo Nix, and I am a believer in him. When we look at who was leading for the touchdowns going into week 3, Jared Goff sitting at the top with 5 passing touchdowns for Detroit. Lamar then for Baltimore at 4. And then it is Bo Nix sitting there with 3 passing touchdowns thus far on the season, followed by Bryce Young. So I have a lot of faith in Bo Nix. I think he's a competent quarterback out there, and his connection with Cortland Sutton is phenomenal. When we're looking at the defensive edge, for which team, it is the Denver Broncos. Like you said, Khalil Mack out of the lineup now for the LA Chargers. And then I look at that offensive line. The offensive line was a huge question mark going into the season with Slater. On the blind side, taking an injury, Joe Alt has moved over there, and there's been some shifting in that offensive line. And yes, they've done fantastic at protecting Justin Herbert in the first 2 games. And yes, Jim Harbaugh has made this team play a little bit different than I would have expected. We saw in that KC game, the passing game really come to life, which we didn't see last season, which was a huge concern for me because Justin Herbert has an absolutely gunslinging arm, which they did showcase in that first week in Brazil with the Kansas City Chiefs. He was able to get that line time behind the offensive line, and he also scrambled with his legs. And then last week, versus Vegas, and Vegas has Max Crosby. Max Crosby was able to put that pressure on him, but not as much as we would have thought that the Vegas Raiders would have been able to put the pressure on Justin Herbert. This week versus Denver, I don't think we're going to see Justin Herbert have as much time. I have so much respect for the Denver Broncos defense, and I think they're going to put that pressure on them here because the Chargers are my team. Because I can't come to a conclusion with this game. I do think the Chargers could find a way to sneak it out, but I don't like the fact that the defense is stronger here for the Denver Broncos. And I think that's what it's going to come down to at the end of the day. I think we could see the pick 6 if we see the pick 6 out of Denver, forcing Justin Herbert to throw that interception, which remember, he's so strong at not throwing those interceptions, but this is a different defense here for Denver. I think they're the best in the league.
Well, at least you and I got that in common because I've been a Charger fan since I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And, so I know exactly this organization and everything that they've been through from the ups and downs. But I do kind of expect, because I know that's been the chatter, is the run game. I hope that they are able to figure out the consistency because I do like Amari and Hampton, and hopefully Najee Harris can come in, check in, and really kind of contribute to the offense. But, yeah, I think it should be interesting. But I do think when you add in weapons, that will allow Justin Herbert to now, with 3rd and Keenan, 4th and Keenan, it doesn't matter what down it is. Keenan Allen going and trying to get the first downs or maybe a score. That's what's the big X factor. You already have that connection from there. So it should be an exciting game. I hope that it gets to like a 3-4 point margin at best because loving these division games, it's going to look like that. And finally, my good favorite bet of the week is the Cardinals plus 2.5. Joe, I don't know what you've seen from the Cardinals, but here's what I know. Defensively, that is a very underrated defensive team because Will Johnson's been playing out of his mind. They really have been inducing a lot of pressures. Now, the question mark has been, is the MHJ and Kyler Murray connection, is that solid and consistent? That is the hard part. But I love that they've been contributing with Trey McBride. So, and James Conner, he's still one of their best running backs. So I feel like this is actually kind of my favorite bet of the week. 2.5. I'm not asking for much. I just think the Cardinals right now, I could see Jonathan Gannon's identity. He's there to get pressures. He's there to stop the runs. And I also do think he's been there to really get more possession on the offensive side as long as the defense continues to contribute.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm so leery of this because Kyler Murray is a quarterback that he just gives me that painful gut feeling every time I back him, right? I had him in week 1 in Survivor. We were able to pull that out. We saw those struggles last week as well. This team's sitting 2-0. But do they look as solid as some of the other 2-0 teams? No. And in my opinion, they don't. But I do believe in that defense. And I do believe in Kyler Murray's connection with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think that is a solid connection. And I do think he can get him the ball. And then I look at the 49ers. You look at those injuries, still question marks around if Purdy will play. I'm kind of hearing a little bit of rumors that Purdy will play. But if it's Mac Jones, I'm all over the cards in this one because I look at Mac Jones and can we really trust him to play two solid back-to-back good games, and I can't. And then you look at the 49ers, they failed to cover the spread in each of their last 9 home games following a win. They just can't pull those wins together. So it's not a bet that I want to back the 49ers. I'm hoping we get Mac Jones, and then I can come in with you here on the Cardinals to get it done. And I would be taking them straight up on the money line. I wouldn't even play around grabbing them plus points.
Yeah, no, I think the money line looks a little more favorable. I agree with that. But I do know, I mean, even for a division rival game and you're in San Francisco, that will be challenging. And yeah, that is the question, because could Mac Jones really pull off another week in which Kyle Shanahan puts together the playbook and just distributes to a lot of his weapons? That's going to be questionable up from there. But I just love the intensity. I really do with a lot of these division rival games. The intensity, the matchup itself, and just what they're playing for. I think that's what's been kind of the big takeaway. This week's going to be really interesting, though, either way. But appreciate you for coming on by. Love your content and love everything you break down, especially for a lot of people that bet with us with either BetUS and Bet Payday Fantasy. Everybody wants to know what exactly are some of the experts looking at, to prepare for their week, so that way they're not straining their wallets and they come out as big day payers. So appreciate you for coming on by, Joe. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and we'll see what week 3 has in store for us this week.
Absolutely. All the best in all of your bets. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.